Hello, I'm Eric Sirotkin. Hello. Hello. I want to take you to 1968. I was 11 years old. But all around, people were beginning to wake up. Martin Luther King was shaking a nation at its moral core. My parents explained to me that he represented such hope for America. I learned of the freedom riders, of the bus boycotts in the South, sit-down protests, and soldiers enforcing mandatory integration. It felt exciting. It felt alive. Dr. King saw the connections that others ignored and took his dream of social justice and racial equality and focused it in on the immorality of the war and beyond, labeling the United States at the time the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. He was bringing people together, speaking of unifying the anti-war movement, the civil rights movements, and helping America to put a face on those we call the enemy. His words, I say, ring true today in a world of drone attacks, targeted assassinations, and still trying to fight our way to peace. We listened as he said, somehow this madness must cease. We must stop now. I speak as a child of God and brother to the suffering poor of Vietnam. I speak for those whose land is being laid waste, whose homes are being destroyed, whose culture is being subverted. I speak for the poor in America who are paying the double price of smashed hopes at home and death and corruption in Vietnam. I speak as a citizen of the world, for the world as it stands aghast at the path we have taken. I speak as an American to the leaders of my own nation that the great initiative in this war is ours. The initiative to stop it must be ours as well.
Yeah.
But then came Memphis. On that fateful evening of April 3rd, 1968, King paused his speech to striking sanitation workers and said, I would like to live a long life, want to do God's work. He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over it. I've seen the promised land. And he said, I may not get there with you, he said, almost prophetically. People shouted, no, 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 he continued. But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And he said, I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Few of us heard that speech until it was too late. The next day, he was shot and killed. More than 40 years later, as I look around at all of you, it is clear that there are those who do believe that we as a people will get there. Creation of this holiday today was an act of political brilliance, absolute brilliance. As a result, you may not think about it, but as a result, millions of people get to reflect not just on the man, but on the message. Peace, justice, brotherhood, but also, as Evan spoke about, economic justice, a right to a job, and putting money into people, not wars and profit. Martin Luther King was a radical by our standards today, but he was a rebel, not for conflict, revolution, and confrontation, but for love, forgiveness, and compassion. Words too often left off the plate today when we talk about social change. Words sometimes seen as weak or new age or lacking power. But I contend that actually they are powerful beyond measure. What was the dream? Was it about hope, about equality, or something even deeper, perhaps a new society? Martin Luther King would have been proud of so much of the Occupy movement. And today is a good day to reflect on the message and carry it into our political work and into our hearts. I was just 1 year old when he gave the Christmas sermon where he read the words he wrote while in jail for committing civil nonviolent disobedience during the Montgomery bus boycott. He discussed in that speech the power of forgiveness, and it helps us answer that question that we all face today. Can we let go of the anger? And is it even possible to love our enemies? He said, first, we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He said, he who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. It is impossible even to begin the act of loving one's enemy without the prior acceptance of the necessity over and over again of forgiving those who even inflict evil and injury upon us. A lofty goal, I'd say, but can it be put into action is the challenge we face. In the 1990s, I worked in South Africa with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There, I saw horrendous crimes forgiven, or sometimes the victim would just say, I want to know what happened so I know who to forgive. But as Dullah Omar, the first Minister of Justice, a good friend of mine who used to say to me, we can forgive, but never forget. But never forget. And Martin Luther King said, forgiveness does not mean ignoring what has been done or putting a false label on an evil act. It means rather that the evil act no longer remains as a barrier to the relationship. Forgiveness is a catalyst, creating the atmosphere necessary for a fresh start and a new beginning. So who are these enemies? These 1%ers we speak about? Is it also clear who is good and who is evil, even among the 99%? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who knows quite a bit about the line of good and evil, he spent a long time in Soviet gulags, said, good and evil cuts through the heart of every person, and who is going to cut out a piece of their own heart? Dr. King wrote while sitting in jail yet, this simply means that there is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. So this allows us to escape what King called the circle of violence and hate. He said we must not seek to defeat or humiliate the enemy, but to win his friendship and understanding. At times we are able to humiliate our worst enemy. Inevitably, his weak moment comes, and we are able to thrust in his side the spear of defeat. But this, he said, we must not do. Every word and deed must contribute to an understanding with the enemy and release those vast reservoirs of goodwill which have been blocked by impenetrable walls of hate. So King drafted this guidance in jail, a time when he could have taken the other approach, when he could have been angry at his captors. Like Gandhi before him and Mandela, he concluded in a way that explains why it is our only choice. He said, hate is just as injurious to the person who hates. Like an unchecked cancer, hate corrodes the personality and eats away its vital unity. Hate destroys a man's sense of values and his objectivity. It destroys our objectivity. It causes him to describe the beautiful as ugly, the ugly as beautiful, and to confuse the true with the false with the true. By its very nature, hate destroys and tears down. By its very nature, love creates and builds up, and love transforms with redemptive power. So the question and challenge, I contend, for us as a movement, can we occupy a new tomorrow?